Welcome to the Law of Attraction Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Key. If you're looking to manifest a life you don't need a vacation from, then you came to the right place. I quit my 9-to-5 job to stay home with my kids while building a thriving business. Now, as a best-selling author, app creator, and 3-times podcaster, I am here to teach you how to do the same. If you want to join my inner tribe, head over to the Manifest It Now app. And now let's dive in to the podcast where I'm going to give you my best manifestation hacks and tips so that you can manifest a life full of abundance, freedom, and fulfillment. Do you ever dream that you're your own boss and you make your own schedule and you can just wake up and do whatever you want with your time? Maybe you're currently stuck in your 9-to-5 job and you have no idea what you would even do if you could. Or maybe you already have a business idea or a business, but you just can't figure out how to get it to grow, how to get it to really take off and start making enough money to where you can have that life. You could quit your day job. You could be home with your kids. You could travel. You could do all the things that you want to do. And I truly believe if you aren't excited to wake up every morning and the work that you're doing doesn't light you up, then that is a sign. That is your intuition telling you, hey, it's time for a change. Because I don't think anyone should have to settle for mediocre. So if you're going through the motions and you're not waking up filled with gratitude and you're not feeling energized by your normal day in, day out, or even worse, if you're feeling dread like I did for 12 years when I was in the corporate world, then that is a sign. That is a sign that maybe you need to look at that and start exploring. And, we get so caught up in our routines. Like we are creatures of habit and our subconscious really fears change. So it's really easy to just ignore that and to just drudge through and go through the motions and not actually look at, am I doing what makes me happy? Am I satisfied right now with my life? Or is there something that I'm supposed to be doing that I'm missing out on right now? And if you're feeling like you just have no, fulfillment or you're not really living in your purpose, then it's time to take a look at that. So if you can, get out a journal because I'm going to give you guys some journal prompts. And if you're driving, that's fine. Just listen and think about these questions. And if you want the full journal, it's a big one with a ton of prompts, I will link it in the show notes. This is really what helped me kind of get crystal clear on some of the changes that I needed to make in life. And I usually look at this about once a year and just kind of redefine where I need to be, if I need to pivot, am I still, feeling really fulfilled in what I'm doing? And so the key with this is to just allow yourself to write down whatever comes through. So try not to overanalyze or overthink. We want to be in the right part of the brain where your intuition is just flowing onto the paper instead of your strategic analytical mind getting involved in screwing everything up. All right, so I'm going to go through a series of questions and just write down the first thing that comes to mind. So the first one is there a challenge that you've overcome that you could help others overcome? I want to spend a minute on this while you're writing and just kind of talk about why I wanted this to be the first question. I have worked with a lot of different people now, and what's really interesting is the biggest issues that we face in life, some of the hardest moments, the things that are painful, the things that we view as very negative, can end up serving a really deep purpose in our life. Because sometimes I believe that we go through things and we're meant to go through certain things because we were meant to help others. And we go through them knowing that from that experience, we're going to be able to kind of be that light and lead other people through that. which can be anything. I mean, it could be some form of, failing. It could be hitting rock bottom. It could be, going through some type of a life change, like getting a divorce or getting fired from a job, and how we responded, how we came back from that, how we found ourselves again. And a lot of times, we've all been through things, and the things that we learned, we can then help others by giving them some of those helpful things that we wish we would have known at the time, right? The next question is, what do people ask you for help with? So is there a common theme, something that people come to you for help with, for advice on? And it could be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything like super major. It could even just be like people tend to ask me for advice on clothes, like what they should buy, or, people ask for my advice on politics or on shopping or financing, or like anything that you just see a common theme that people will kind of look to you as the expert, or maybe just someone who knows a little bit more than they do. So that leads me to the next question, which is, what are you just a little more knowledgeable about than the average person? Now, this is a good one. This one really kind of changed things for me, because I think for the most part, we all think, okay, if I want to be a coach or run a business or teach someone on something, I have to be a quote unquote expert. And the thing is, experts it's such a subjective term, because an expert can be someone who has lived through an experience and now they're an expert on it, right? Just like the first question. An expert can also be someone who has a PhD in the topic. An expert can also be someone who has no formal credentials or skills or, coursework around a topic, but they're just really passionate about it. And so they read up on it all the time. And therefore they're an expert. They always know like what is going on in that field. And it could just be that you're an expert because it's a hobby and it's something you've done for years. And so you're just a little bit more knowledgeable. And that's really the answer. Like if you want to do anything around helping other people, teaching other people, you don't have to have a certain credential or certificate or degree. Anyone can be an expert. The key is, are you just a little more knowledgeable? Are you one step ahead of where everyone else is? And sometimes, if you're really courageous, you don't even have to be one step ahead. You could be going through it alongside your customers and your clients and just being very transparent about that. Like, hey, I'm going on this journey. Who wants to join me? And I've seen a lot of people really successfully do this in like the fitness world, where maybe they're overweight or they had a health scare or something like that. And they just decided to be vulnerable and put it all out there and say, hey, I'm a mess right now. And I got a wake up call and I need to change. Who wants to come on this journey with me? And they just start sharing what they're going through. And that can be the most powerful because it is so relatable and so authentic. And if you've ever read any of Brene Brown's books, she researches all about vulnerability and how that is what builds trust and relationships quicker than anything else. And that goes for relationships with future clients and customers and your audience is being vulnerable. And it's also the scariest thing. It's the scariest thing. People are terrified to be vulnerable, but it's the thing that brings us all together because then we realize we're not alone and there's someone else that's going through what I'm going through. So something like that, or something that you're a little more knowledgeable about. Now, when I first went through this, gosh, I've been trying to figure out when it was. I think it was 2015. And I that was like the first time I really went through this whole workbook that I'm going to give you guys. And I thought about that because I had heard someone else say that. And I thought, okay, what am I interested in? And on the sheet of paper, I wrote Instagram, because like Instagram was like the new big thing. I mean, I don't think it was new at that time, but it was new to me. And it was like, kind of like TikTok is now, where everyone is growing. So I wrote down Instagram, and particularly with Instagram, I loved looking at positive quotes, because that was what was setting up my mind in the morning when I would wake up with dread and I was sick to my stomach because I had to go to this job where my boss was trying to fire me, and I just felt like so alone and scared that I was going to lose my income. And I felt like I was nothing. Like I just felt like crap. I felt like I wasn't good enough. It was awful. So every morning I would wake up early and I would drink my coffee, and I had my little morning routine. And part of that routine was going on Instagram. And I had gotten very intentional where I only followed accounts that completely inspired me. And I would scroll through Instagram and I would read these motivational quotes until I felt ready to go take on the day and deal with what I was dealing with. So that was a really big, important part of my transformation and my mental health and just getting through a really rough time. And I always had that in the back of my mind, like I would love to be that for someone else. So that's what I meant when I wrote Instagram. And then I also wrote down law of attraction, because from the moment I read The Secret in 2009, when I first learned about the law of attraction, I could not get my hands on enough information. Like I was so hungry for knowledge on it, and I just soaked everything up that I could. And I applied it to my life, and I manifested a lot of really cool things. I mean, I completely transformed every aspect of my life with it. And again, it helped me stay sane in a time that was very difficult with my job and very stressful. So those were the only two things I could come up with, because outside of that, I had no hobbies. I've never really been good at anything. I mean, I say that, although that's probably not true, but in my mind at the time, there was nothing I was good at or knowledgeable about. I felt like totally average. I felt like I was a great mom and a great wife and a great worker, like for my company. But outside of that, there wasn't anything else. Like those things kind of consumed my identity. And I knew that I loved being a mom. Like my family was my everything. And I always knew like all I really wanted was to be able to be home and raise my daughter. But I also knew like I am the type of person that I've got to have something for myself. I've got to have something that I'm doing where I feel like I am not really productive, but like serving a purpose. And I think that's because in human design, and I am not a human design expert, but this is like the one aspect of human design that I actually resonated with. I'm the type where my income has to be tied to my purpose. Otherwise, I'm like not satisfied. And that's what was a big problem for me, is I had a good income, but I didn't feel like I was serving any higher purpose. I didn't really feel connected to like how I was serving the world. And I really struggled with that. And so anyhow, the two things I came up with were Instagram and the law of attraction. Both of those, I was just a little, like a sliver more knowledgeable than the average person. And I never would have called myself an expert. I still don't call myself an expert. I just know that because I'm so passionate about it, I know a little bit more than the average person would. And yes, there are people that are more knowledgeable, but the most people could probably learn a couple of tips from me. Like that's kind of what I mean by this. It's like, you've got a pretty good grasp on it, and because it's something that you love to consume, you love to learn about, right? So anyhow, that was a long-winded explanation of that question. Let's go on to the next one. Very simple. What energizes you? What energizes you? Okay. So, obviously we all want to make more money, but that's not really what energizes us. What we spend the money on, what we spend our time, our free time doing, what we look forward to, that thing that you could do for hours and you don't care because it feels like minutes. That's what energizes you. And for some people, it's simply being around people, right? Like some people are extroverts and they get their energy from like collaborating and speaking and, hanging out with different people. And then there's introverts like me where that actually, not that I don't enjoy it, but it takes away from my energy. Like I need time alone. So, you can think of it in that aspect. You can think of it as like, when was the last time I really felt alive? I was doing something and I didn't want to stop doing it. And again, for me, that's probably always going to be the law of attraction. I mean, I could read book after book after book and watch video after video and never get sick of it. All right. Along with that, what conversations do you love having? And so again, for me, I mean, you start having a conversation with me around the law of attraction, the manifestation, the universe, how our thoughts create a reality, the subconscious mind, we're going to be best friends. Like I will just talk until there's nothing left to say because I love it. What is that for you? What type of content, what subject, like what are the things that you could just talk about forever? And here's the thing, when you're writing this out, the reason why I want you to tap into your intuition is because your mind is going to try to come into this and say, well, why would you even write that down? Like, how would you ever make money doing that? Don't listen to that because you can monetize everything. And the more passionate you are about something, the better chances of you being financially successful from it. And we'll get into that probably in another episode. But don't let your mind come in. Just write it down. Like it could literally be something that seems so ridiculous. Like, makeup trends, Hollywood gossip. Like it doesn't matter. Write it down. What is that thing for you? All right. And this is the last question. What's something that you feel like you have a good handle on compared to most people? Now, again, like your mind's going to come in and be like, oh, look at you. Like, who do you think you are? No, just like what area do you feel like you kind of excel at? Like, you know what? I've got this. I may be a mess in other areas, but I've got this part handled. And that could be parenting. It could be your relationship, your marriage. It could be your finances. It could be budgeting. It could be staying like super organized. Could be tech stuff. Like it could be anything, but just what is that one thing? We all have that one thing where we're like, you know what? I've got this handled. I've really got my shit together in this area. What's that thing for you? All right. Now, if you feel like you need more, like I said, I've got a whole entire workbook filled with these questions because the point is to try to bring out that sense, that intuitive sense of what your purpose is. What's that thing that you really want to do? And maybe you're afraid to admit it because maybe your family or your coworkers or your friends would like laugh at you and be like, there's no way you could ever make money doing that. So a lot of times we'll suppress it. Maybe it's something creative and you've suppressed it back in childhood because your teachers and everyone, all the adults and authorities said, hey, like, no, you need to focus on your math and your science. And, creative stuff doesn't pay the bills. Like it's probably something that maybe you have suppressed. This is where you're going to kind of become acquainted with that again and just kind of look at that. And now that you are doing that, let your subconscious do its thing and kind of evaluate this. And the next step is figuring out how to monetize it. I truly believe that we were all put here for a specific reason. We're all supposed to like serve the world in a certain way. And when you're aligned with that and you figure out what that is, you feel that fulfillment. Like you feel like you're really doing what you were called here to do. And it doesn't have to be anything like, huge, like performing heart surgery. You know what I mean? Like it could be just helping people, like spreading some joy, giving some advice, helping people through a difficult time, making things fun, helping people take their mind off of the seriousness of life. Like it could literally be anything, but this will help you kind of uncover what that thing is that you've probably suppressed back in childhood because that's how we were conditioned as a society. Now, here's the thing. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, people getting started in their business. Everything can be monetized, everything. Because if it's something that lights you up, then it's definitely something that's going to light other people up as well. And if you have more knowledge on it, you can then teach that to other people. You can teach it in the form of like tips and courses and lessons and things like that. You can teach in the form of entertainment, making, videos. You could teach in the form of books and journals and worksheets. Like there's so many different formats, okay? But the key is like if you're going to monetize it, you've got to put it out there, right? The world has to know about it in order to buy it, in order to invest in it. And so a lot of people, like the very first thing, it's like, oh my gosh, well, I need social media and I hate social media, or I'm not good at social media, or I have no followers. And then they kind of give up on the idea. Well, here's the thing. Even people that already have a huge following and that are on social media already, I still tell them, do not rely on social media. There are more effective, efficient ways of growing an audience and putting your work out into the world than social media. And social media, like, I don't know if you've realized, but it's been getting harder and harder and harder as time goes on. And, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but I don't see it getting easier. I think it's going to go the opposite way. And so what I recommend is creating an app. Now, creating an app, like a lot of people think, well, that's my product. Like it's an entry-level product. The real purpose of creating an app is to bring people into your world. It is like the entry point. Okay, so a lot of people view social media that way. They say like, oh, social media is my business card. Well, okay. The realistic view is that most people, if they by chance do come across you, you maybe have like a split second of their attention. But with an app, it's different. They're interacting with it and it's a different experience. And you can really warm an audience and move people on to other things that you develop very successfully with an app than social media. People don't go to social media with the mindset of investing in themselves and buying something. People go to an app specifically for a reason, right? So, and same thing with like Pinterest. People go to Pinterest for a reason, which is why conversions on Pinterest are so high. Because people go there with the intention of buying something, learning something, finding a piece of information. So this is kind of how like technology is changing things and making things easier and easier. So instead of spending 5 years trying to grow your social media and it's going super slow and it's really frustrating, you can immediately stand out in a saturated industry with an app, with a podcast, with appropriate Pinterest marketing. All of these things are the things that I go over in Digital CEO. So Digital CEO is my 6-week program where I teach you how to build an app. And again, like this is for people who are still in their job and like don't even know what they want to do, all the way to people who already have a business but are getting sick and tired of spending hours and hours and hours every day on social media with no growth, no income growth. So for being a loyal podcast listener, I am extending the 50% off. So we had 50% off for the pre-sale price. I want to extend that for all of my podcast listeners because, I mean, you guys are amazing. You every week are listening to these episodes and I really appreciate it. So I want to extend that to you. So if you go to the link in the show notes, I will have a special link for you to get in. Now, the doors are closing August 1st. So this is the last week to get into the course, and then I'm closing it. Doors are closed, and you're going to have to wait until next year or the next time that I launch it. So if it's something you've been thinking about, take advantage of it now. Like I said, you'll get the 50% off discount. It's 6 weeks, and you're going to learn something that is going to more than pay for itself. Because when you figure out how to do this, and trust me, it's so much easier than you think, and you can monetize it, you make back your investment. So anyhow, if that's something you've been thinking about, I'm going to put that special link in the show notes for you. I'll also probably send it out in an email. And then I will also link the free link to the journal. So if you want the full journal to keep exploring what your true purpose is, you can find that in the show notes as well. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you back here next time. Thanks for tuning in. As always, go to the show notes because I always have free stuff for you guys along with exclusive offers just for my podcast listeners. And if you loved this episode, the best thing you can do is pay it forward and share it with a friend. Send some positivity to someone else, and it really helps the podcast. So it's totally free. It's something you can do to support the show. And if you want to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, I would absolutely love that. That helps as well. Hop on over to Instagram at Law of Attraction Tribe and say hello. I would love to meet you. And thank you so much again for tuning in every week. I'll see you back here next time.